Hey everyone, and welcome to the Powerhouse. And I'm so excited for this episode because the person you're going to meet, I met a few years ago here in New York. During a few minutes of conversation, we were able to connect, and I always supported a lot of her events. And recently, I went to her event here in New York during Climate Week. It was a great showcase, a great exhibition. And without further ado, she is a social entrepreneur, an Obama leader, architect, and educator with over 10 years of experience. Let us welcome Sameera. Welcome,
Hi.
Sameera.
Hey, good to be here. And that's a very kind introduction.
So we'll segue right away. Sameera, what's your story?
So, a lot of the things I think I did in my life led me up to being part of that community and how I show up for people. I've learned through the life that I lived. So to share a little bit about it, I was born in India, in South India, and really beautiful jungles, and like I had the luxury of like walking through jungles where you can almost not see light come through, that it's so dense and like it's so layered, and luxury of seeing animals in their own habitat, and that was like my childhood, like, and I still feel so privileged to have had that. I was born into a family of public servants who believed in the better of the collective, and that when we all put effort together, we will have a better community, we will be living better, healthier. So that, just to give everybody like a bit of like context, that's like what I'm brought into. And I can't be more grateful for all the exposure that I've had from my grandfather and my father's thinking, uh, that also added a lot of layers into what I believe and how I see the world. So that's a little bit. And my middle name, I'm told, like now my middle name, but that used to be my last name before, was an actual village. They were like community named from that village, and you could recognize people that way. Like I met someone randomly in Europe, and then I was like, oh wow, that's rare. So that's another unique factor. And you mentioned I could show some pictures. Can we do that? I'm a visual person. Maybe this will help also people kind of see my journey through this.
Mhm.
So the forest and everything that I was talking about is this house. This is where I think I start to understand society. I start to understand complexities of life, and like that you can't just have everything you want or dream of something, and that you have to actually put effort into achieving that. And this is a beautiful hilltop house, and it's based in a community which was colonized, and British had a stationed army in this community, and this was one of their at that the period when they were stationed. These houses were built there, basically to support their presence. So the design of it is also very unique in how it is. And this was the first time I understood that space has an influence in how you live. And those systems and rules really dictate how you're presented in society, where who is considered important, and things like that, which are very complex kind of conversations. But at a very, very young age, I had exposure to that because I lived here. So I asked very difficult questions that I don't think a lot of like kids need to know, but that influence, like, oh wow, why is this house designed this way? Because some other community members lived here and ruled over my community, and my community lived in a completely different space that didn't have light. And that led me to the curiosity of how design can influence life. And like I said, I was this is a camp where they recover rogue elephants who've either lost their path and kind of, come into the community. Sometimes we would have phone calls at night, like, where elephants have come through some farms and there's some destruction happening. And then I started to have a conversation with my father, who is a person in charge of caring for this.
Mhm.
And then he shared that, well, because we are encroaching their land, we are building where they're supposed to live. And climate became such a huge part as well, very early on for me. And a few years later, I ended up joining architecture school. None of my family knew what design was. So it was, it was a path that kind of like I took. and started to really work with like natural materials. You know, those puzzle pieces in my life kind of fit in that something has to be sustainable, something should be from our land, and that we build for the community. So I started to like teach myself how to build with waste, how to build with um, 3D printing, and how to learn all. I was just kind of gathering all the tools that I needed. Still, I don't know what I'm up to, but I'm just like absorbing everything. And I traveled and lived in different communities where space and how we share in society things is different, and started adding layers of what I know today. And worked with great leaders that I admired, designed spaces with community values and capacity building that really impacted people on the ground. I'm also extremely grateful for my parents letting me do that discovery, you know, as part of my learning and how I did things and really doing things by my hand. And then this all led to me being in graduate school thinking I can solve the world's problems for housing by 3D printing houses in clay. It kind of ended up there being my dream. Like, also realized how naive I was, you know, thinking that one individual can. It was brave as well as bold to dream that big, but also I was only exposed to one side of things. At that point, and I was really like, you know, exploring all of that and putting all my skill and energy into that. And that's when kind of I started Needlab, the organization that I still run in the college that I was studying graduate school, and started working with community all around the world. I really wanted women to be represented in construction and architecture in a way it wasn't before. In this workshop, kind of 95% women built this structure by their hand. And we were in newspapers, we were in covers of magazines. And I really wanted to show that power, like, hey, women can be here. And then I graduated, my family was there, and I started to expand that kind of work with community all around the world. And this is when few things started becoming very important, you know, to how I see the world is it even if it's through design and my field of expertise, but this can be applied to any other field, anyone that's passionate in, is how is this work really impacting where I am at? Is it additive in terms of resource, and is it really adding values and skilling people and sharing resources? And how are we doing that? So that's when it kind of really clicked that when I build, it has to be from the land. It has to share those skills with the community there, and for them to feel employed, an important part of this story, that this structure in anything that's built around us is built by people. And that's when like really Needlab started to formulate in terms of idea and how we advocate for climate, how we involve community in them having the power to design how their society should look like. So and then worked in several communities all around the world. This was when Bhutan's prime minister came to a workshop to see what we're doing. We worked with different communities. This is in South Korea. And we worked with technology. It's not that if I wanted to work on the ground and using the materials from there, we were also using technology as in parallel, like as one of the tools in our toolbox, not to define things around it, but yeah, and really met a lot of people, designed with a lot of communities, made spaces that were beautiful and inclusive to people around the world. Here we changed the rules of a museum, saying that you should be able to touch and sit and laugh at the museum. Unlike some static spaces, we should invite people. So we redefined that. And so after we started doing that, it's became more clear that it's not for the people. I'm actually doing it with them. And that's when like a whole another avenue opened up for me, that I learned everything that I know from the people that I work with, and they are the true hero of everything that we do and how we design. So that's how we built the house with the people at the UN Habitat. I got there like that dream of building houses, you know, but not in the way that I initially thought, because my thesis was about building it using robots, which was incredible. I just wanted to solve it at once, but then I forgot the core of my story, which is people. And then I realized, well, that's the main thing, that we do it with the people and not just for them. So that's how I broke my own hypothesis in a way. And we got published in some magazines, and we designed part of some design weeks and things like that. And this was really a moment when you don't realize like maybe what you're doing is something important and a path not trodden before, because here I am, a woman of color, uh, who has no investment or black book of people who are giving me money to build these structures, which is how architecture kind of is a closed club of people. Shigeru Ban was like my mentor. Like I've never met him, but in books, in school, studying about him. And then we were next to each other in the same magazine. And that was one moment I felt like anybody can really put effort and get there. We truly can if you have your values and you really genuinely are trying. I wouldn't say it's easy, but yeah. And this was one of our offices that we had in Barcelona. And yeah, and then that's when I met you. This is when I feel like I was starting to discover who I was and what my story was and how I belong and I'm part of the community, which I call the world around us. And this is when the program came into my life. And then the rest is history.
That was a great story. It's telling on your journey and the kind of the values you lead.
Thank you.
I'd say I'm grateful again for you accepting this
I
invitation
know.
and getting to know you more. I always tried organizing either meetup. I couldn't organize it, and then now you moved to a different state. Now I'm officially making it. So one day you'll be able to join our meetups here in New York again.
I sure hope so.
During this journey of yours, take us back to this decision that you were in a crossroad, right? Wherein if you chose, let's say A, that's the easy way out, but it doesn't show that you're living your values. And you went with option B, which is a harder route, but you said, this is who I am. And I can give up the easy way because I want to be that person to say, I lived who I want to be, that type of life. Take us through it.
Mm, wow. I feel like I've had that moment a lot of times in my life. It's not, I think it's constant. Um,
Right.
Probably you experience it, and a lot of people do experience that. And I think it sometimes can feel every day. You're making those intentional, conscious choices.
Mhm.
And a few times that kind of reflected was first, I noticed this with my dad. And that gave me a hint that it's not going to be easy if you're set out to do something. There will be consequences. There will be certain things when you got to step back. And that's when I got the full picture of long arc leadership, that even if today I'm not going full throttle in the direction I want to, but I've reduced my pace, it's with that vision that it's a long arc strategy, that I'm looking forward to that much further. I might not be 100% propelling today in that direction, but I still have that set in sight. So that helps me also moderate when things are really hard. I mean, I'm pushing up the hill with a huge boulder on my back. I also allow myself intentionally to be like, this is going to be hard.
Mhm.
And I have chosen this, but I can slow down now. I give myself permission to be like, it's going to take longer. Be aware of that. Take your time. But I don't want to burn out when it gets really, really hard those times. So when you burn out, sometimes the long arc, what you have at the end of it, can start to feel very overburdening. And I don't want that to happen, because I really want to achieve that. But it might take me 5 more years, and I'm intentionally okay with that. And some years it might be very intense, and some years it might be slower for several reasons. And I think intentionally choosing for that is really good for human beings, basically, to think about it in that format. That's my that's my kind of like strategy, let's say.
I see. Wow. And uh, when were you able to realize that you're okay to not be always 100%? What instance was it like? Did you experience a burnout? Then you had that realization?
That's a great question. The first time it all made sense for me was when we were asked to write an essay about who are we or why do we do what we do, kind of story narrative in the start of the program. So that when I kind of sat down and wrote things down, and that's when it really clicked to me. why it was. So I've mentioned this before. My dad was working for the Forest Service, and a lot of times you have complications with political system or social fabric of where you are at in your career, and he had a lot of that friction. He was trying to really pass laws that were very climate forward at times when the private sector or the industry or the political environment did not agree with him. And he's been doing that for 40 years now, working on lawsuits for so long. And at times we had to go into hiding. At times we had to move. At times he had to give up what he was doing temporarily and go and teach and come back to it. And he still has that in the back of his mind. And we as a family saw that as well. So that was really defining for me in that way. Like, I know what my goal is, but it can take maneuvers. I can go through meanderings. It doesn't have to be a straight line. And my expectation for it to be a straight line is me making it hard for myself. If I accept that maybe these 3 years are what they are, and find myself how I can be additive to that process, it might be slow. It's okay, but I'm getting there in some way. And redefining, pausing and redefining how fast I can get there. Um, and what's the pace, and is it a good check and a scan of being like, hey, is it good? It's not like every time I know it, but like I do pause, and that helps. That really, really helps. And I think being forgiving about your plan, even if it doesn't go as initially planned, and then you scratch it, and then we're like, okay, it'll take. It's. I think some psychologist or someone said this. Think of all the tasks as string of pearls,
Mhm.
and it's like, oh, in order to make the whole set, you need to add each one of them. But in order to get to the next one, it could take a year, it could take one day, it could just be done in one afternoon. But never evaluate yourself about the time it took to get to the next one. um, do your put best to get to the next one, as long as you're moving along. And yeah, that helped.
That's great. A leader's journey is never linear. So there are people who are still in college who get this advice that you have to do plan A step by step, and it's a straight line for your career, and slowly you'll be able to build up. That would be a road to disappointment. And I wanted to segue this to my next question. What are quotes that you live by, that you always think when you're encountering some challenges?
Ooh, wow. There's several. I'm paraphrasing definitely,
Sure.
but I have to go with our common leader who we both collectively admire.
Right.
I think President Obama said this that really helps me when I feel excluded, or that I think everybody has some level of imposter syndrome, right? Have I cheated my way into this room? Will I be able to contribute to the level that I think I should for this position I'm holding? Or have I taken this position instead of someone else who's more worthy of it than me? We all go through that pause and like, hey, am I doing the best I can? And I think when we were with him in person, he said there's something that I think made everybody feel so important and relevant, and that you're there for a reason. I think he has this incredible ability to do so. I go back to that. He said that he was in every powerful room he could imagine in the world. He has been at every table, every one of those discussions where the largest amount of power is being, traded or discussed.
Right.
And he felt like any one of us in that room was smart enough, capable enough to be in one of those rooms,
Mm.
and that we are genuinely, truly enough. And it's not about someone else in those rooms being smarter. And that really validated me in ways I did not know I needed it. It always felt like, I'm collecting these degrees to prove something, that maybe my point of view has value, and that now after this another degree, the fourth or the fifth, it won't sound like this person doesn't have the skill or the capacity to do so, what I'm sharing or what I'm trying to do. So I think we all try to do that, put layers of armor, coats, and like as much as gear as possible to prove to someone else that we are worthy of being somewhere. And it liberated me from that. And it gives you a bit of, push. It does give you a bit of push if you have that to go forward, to achieve those things, and to be good at what you do and push yourself to be persistent, to be resilient, to be on top of stuff. But also, if it's always nagging in the back of your head, it does hold you back. And that part, I felt like I got the relief. It's like, yeah, here's a man who has seen all levels of power and has seen all levels of capacity that people could contribute, is here saying to young people that you are enough, and that you can go ahead and do whatever you dream to do.
I got goosebumps, you know. I relate to that. Because leaders, you can't not expect conflict. You are expecting conflict all the time. And maybe a way to compensate that is we gotta add that layer. So instead of really peeling the onion towards the core, we try to layer ourselves to feel, I would say, to not feel afraid. Because there's always a level of fear in being responsible for other people's lives, making decisions that there's no guarantee of positive outcome, and feeling that we're not enough,
Yes.
or we may not be the right person in this room to represent the clamor of the people that we are, trying to champion. Wow, you hit me there, because before I sleep, I think like what skill should I add, or what other credentialing is, I think, a symptom of that. That instead of us focusing on real impact, we are trying to layer with superficial titles and things that are we think that would protect us from criticism, from failure. When you were in that point that you get scared of the next action that you're gonna take, how do you prepare yourself in facing that type of next step?
One thing is definitely having the technical capacity to be able to accomplish that, right? You definitely need to have that, and you definitely need to feel confident. I have the skills I need. If not, I have the people around me who can complement me with those for us to collectively achieve that. I really do a deep scan of that in being like, A needs to be achieved. Do we have an additive? If it's not just me, do I have an additive way of having the hard skills to do that? And B is there something else that is hindering or something that could go wrong, and making space for that and acknowledging that things definitely will go wrong. And the three thing is, it's very important not to be restricted or pulled back by the fear of something going wrong. Or yeah, it's always going to at some capacity. It's how you respond to that. And for it not to be reactionary, for it to be truly like, okay, we've expected some level of pushback or things not to go out well, but have we made space for us as a team and as a collective to really take time and respond to that well? And also being very open to apologizing if things don't go as intended, and to take ownership of something and saying, hey, we intended to do this as in a collectively, genuinely positive way. Things didn't work out that way. And being apologetic and like trying to figure out solutions. I think if you seek for perfection, you're going to not attempt to start anything.
There you
So
go.
yeah, I think we really need to like get going and then improve it. And maybe it's not yours even. Maybe someone who comes after you can perfect it, but couldn't lay the foundation or couldn't start it. So in that way, I think we all should think of a collective way. You can't be a response to everything. And you shouldn't think so mighty of oneself. That relieves me actually. It's like, oh, you can't solve everything is like a good thing to tell yourself. Like it helps me go with the first step that I want to do.
It's you're not everything to everyone type, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, you can never be.
A lot of our listeners have this question when they hear someone like in my show, in my previous programs, a speaker, they would say, wow, this is a finished model right away. They look at us as someone that been there, done that. But I tell them like we're human and we feel scared. And I want to be a bit more personal. When Samira gets scared, what's the symptom? Do you overeat? Do you not eat? Do you not sleep. Take us to that moment, and so they will feel like what they're experiencing is normal.
Yeah. Maybe all of that. Depends on the situation. It's not often it's okay. I'll be very honest. Having people around you whom you can absolutely trust when things don't go anything close to as you planned, and being vulnerable with at least 4 or 5 people whom you can absolutely tell whatever you're thinking, and for that not to be shared or for that not to be judged, but just to be heard and have space is very, very important. That gives you the security. I think the deep, deep core security of being like, I'll be okay. I'll have those 5 people. Like, and that really, really helps. And of course, ice cream helps. Having people who ask you to be vulnerable with them is also very important. And whenever, however you feel it's right, is you're the only person who can make the decision of how you want to show up and how you want to share. Yeah. About the how did I discover them? Well, first, I think if you have a huge fear of everything being out there with like at least a digital generation, right? Like everything is so easy to be out there. And 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 even for an opinion of what you have might change in 5 years, right? Like you grow, but a lot of the digital footprint is not forgiving at all of your growth, of your point of view, of your journey through something. And you might have learned something more as you grow. That that is a big fear for me, like of digital presence. So I'm very mindful of a lot of those things. So I found that having the people who observe your growth and in 3 dimensionality see that you're putting effort and that you're not perfect and that you learn from them and they learn from you. Um, that that really made me feel like, hey, this is much needed. So I invested in it knowing it is good, it's healthy, it's important. And often it started off as like, oh, I'm nervous before a presentation. Who's the most calming person I could talk to before I set myself out to do? We don't even have to talk about the presentation. It can be as silly as, oh, did the street dog come by today? Did you give cookies to the dog? Or something as simple and as that just transports me somewhere else. And it's also, I think I place that in people whom I trust, that kind of calming effect on me. And I intentionally invested in that, making sure I put energy into it and that the people who have my back, I have theirs. And it takes time and effort. I think it's the best thing you could do for yourself because we all go through a lot of things. Like tomorrow, maybe I want to quit everything and just take 2 years of sabbatical. And
There we go.
yeah, and those people I know will help me think through that.
Mhm.
And I think that's the. I mean, if you don't have few people whom you can complain or celebrate something with,
Right.
it starts to feel unreal, whatever you achieve or you, for me personally. So yeah, and now my dog's also part of that bubble.
There we go.
It can be human, non-human. So
Whoever is
yeah.
available. Awesome.
So yeah, I found joy in that.
Thanks for sharing that. I know we're in the almost the end stage of our program, so we just wanted to ask you before we go, what would be your final remarks to the people listening who are trying to hone their skills and be a better leader?
Wow, that they can define it however they want it to be, as long as it's core in the core aligned with their values, how they want to show up, and you don't have to have all the answers on the same day, and you don't have to be this defined finished self whenever you start out to do whatever you dream of. That the journey itself is gonna help you there. Being receptive and agreeing to change is the best thing you can do for yourself.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, and to our audience, it's all about your willingness to accept change and grow and be a better person, and knowing that the yesterday you will always fall short to the future you, and it's okay. It's okay to accept that, and whatever opportunity that you get, and being in rooms with people you think that are have been there, done that. You deserve to be in that room, and you deserve to be heard and share your experiences and the things that you're trying to fight for. So, with that, thank you, Samira, for being here. I appreciate the energy, the aura, and this calming effect that you have. Thank you for
I'm
being here.
happy. I could be a rager, you know?
Depends on what scenario is needed.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And to our audience, see you next episode.